It's also difficult when you're back in the pack. I explained earlier, Greg, when you're swallowed with all those cars around you as you were, it's like being in a big fume cloud, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, there was a lot of fumes coming in, and we just occasionally had to get out of the stream as well, because the water temperature was getting up sort of mid-90s, which was quite a surprise. When you're out by yourself, it drops back down to about 80, so the temperature is rising. She's pretty warm in the car. Did you make any other changes just quickly, Greg? And we've got a problem here with the 05 car. Did you alter the... Oh, he's got some battle scars on that. He's whacked the wall big time somewhere. You can tell by the yellow paint. Quickly, Greg, any like a roll center or shock adjustment or anything, or only the tyre pressures? We're probably just going to stick with the tyre pressures for now, mate, because we didn't want to make too many changes and find it was just that. So, you know, hopefully Rick will let us know how it's progressing. Appreciate your time. Talk to you later. Thanks,
Good luck.
mate.
Slow down,
Trouble here.
Right down, mate. Slow right down.
Jason Plato limping, but he has a long way to go.
Wherever the wall is painted yellow, we need to see the corresponding red marks, because, and here we go, he got out wide.
It's the tyres.
Right on the pit straight entry. He smacked it hard, and then the guard has peeled down on the tyre, and as he's gone up Mountain Straight, it started to slice into the tyre, and Matty Crawford's saying, hey, slow down, because if the thing bursts, it'll pitch him back into the wall again.
And just about the worst place to do it, of course, because he's a long way from pit lane entry. They've already made 2 stops, one of which was scheduled, but not the other. And Peter Brock still to get in this car.
I think I must have had a punch or something, because I've just turned in, and then the next thing, that was it. Just off in the wall.
Well, there's that you can't get any more accurate information than the guy telling us.
Jason had a good run at Sandown, and Neil, I'll get you to explain.
Sure you're not still locking right fronts, mate, and then flat spotting the tyre?
No, absolutely not.
Of course, a distinguished European driver, British Touring Car Championship winner, had a red-hot run at Sandown, and they fought that car through in the field to a very good finishing position. But he did admit to me earlier in the week that he was struggling again at Bathurst. He's been here before, as we see an overtaking move here at the second of the moves here, as the Murphy-Kelly car goes past Jim Richards. But the part of the track they have trouble with, the international drivers, is up over the top, where they're slightly unsighted on a couple of the corners.
Jason was refreshingly honest in that respect. I bumped him several times over the weekend, and he's just said, whoa, it's a handful. He's really battling. He openly admits it. The rhythm of this racetrack is so different to Sandown. He did go quite well there. He's had a battle this weekend. He did do a different race in between, because he went back to the UK to Donington for the final round of the British Championship. He actually won the opening race of 3 there. He finished 3rd in the championship there this year, but those little cars are so different. Front wheel drive, 2 litre, nothing like these cars technically, and it's been a handful for him, and that incident that we saw a moment ago has capped off a fairly disappointing weekend for him so far.
Craig Lowndes is just in a 209.227, so he is flying in the Ford Performance Racing car at the moment. And his lead over Mark Scaife is 2.1 seconds. Paul Morris 3rd. These guys are yet to make their pit stop, though, so they're fairly light now. That'll come about 6 to 7 laps from now for both Scaife and Lowndes. So you'd expect to see, even though there's tyre wear involved, these cars are much lighter than they were early in the race when we saw Ambrose doing those very slick times.
Pit Smart's now telling us that when these next round of stops come for those that didn't take the opportunity to come in before and take some service, we expect that Rick Kelly will assume the lead from car number 34, the Gary Rogers Motorsport Tandem McConville entry. And we've got a problem here with, of course, the Plato car just limping down Mount Conrod Straight. Now look at the speed differential here, Bill, as they build speed, and they're nothing like their peak speed there as they blow by on the left.
And a bit of wildlife has crept into the cockpit, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, sitting very quietly there. Greg Murphy has stayed very generously on the headsets for us, Murph. We'd like to welcome you back, so to speak, as a co-commentator here. They've been in all sorts of trouble, the 05 car.
Yeah, and that's got to be so agonising driving back down there at whatever, 40 kilometres an hour, whatever he's doing. I mean, he's obviously, it's a long lap when you go past the pit lane and then have an off.
Good little battle here.
Yep.
As John Bowe tries to find a way past Cameron McLean, who's now, of course, taken over from Russell Ingall. They've made their driver changes.
And remember that John was involved in an incident up here on the approach to turn 2. So he's working away on the back of Cameron McLean, who himself has had a difficult weekend. Greg, it's very difficult, isn't it, when you're not a regular in these cars, to just be able to squeeze a constant and trouble-free 10/10ths out of them. So McLean, even though we know he's a good driver, he's got a great pedigree, it's certainly going to be a tough task for him today, battling with guys like John.
Oh, a huge task. I mean, the pressure is definitely on him. I mean, those guys have they've got a lot resting on their shoulders, with Marcus and Russell both back in the garage, I'm sure, eagerly watching the screen, and it's a really pressure time for those guys to bring those cars back and get their regular drivers back in them. And it's really hard adapting to the race pace that you know, the guys that are doing it every day are doing.
Well, you've been through it yourself when you had the relationship with the Holden Racing team, and you were fighting very hard to get a regular championship drive, Greg. As you outlined in your new book, Murph's Law, there he is firing in a plug for his mate. And it's a lot of pressure, and
it is.
Championship points involved too, which makes it which gives it added difficulty. And I don't think there were championship points involved when you were in that position. No,
well, I don't think so, Bill. But also the fact was, back then there was no restriction on testing, and I was getting a lot of testing in the car during the season, because basically the guys were doing a fair bit, and I was able to get out there. I think, is that Jason Bryan?
He's got a problem.
He's got a big problem because that car's slowed dramatically.
Yeah, I understand, Greg, that he's taken a tour through the sand pit up the top. Let's have a look at the Zinger replay. He locked up and fired through the sand, and he will have filled the front of it with gravel. He was lucky to get away with that without actually putting a scar on it.
Yeah, David Bernard ripped his front end off doing that earlier in the week.
Yeah,
but he's backed off a fair way there too, Neil, and maybe it's obviously done some damage.
Yeah, unless he had a problem on the way into it, and that could be the reason why he doesn't have any pace. But we'll find out. Big problem! A car has rolled, and that is the Clealand Jones Falcon. It's gone over on its head.
John Clealand at the wheel.
And I think that was Jason Plato, wasn't it? The HRT car that he's connected with too.
Well, I need to see it again in replay, but hopefully John is okay.
No, that's the other car there, Neil.
So he's tripped over the Plato car that was limping back to the pits at slow speed.
That's Andrew Jones at the wheel, I assume. That's the Jones Clealand car.
We understand.
Yeah, no, I think it's John at the wheel at the moment. They actually took an opportunity to stop earlier, Greg.
Have a look at the car and I'll tell you what it's like.
That is John at the wheel.
He's punching the glass out the side and wriggling out, so the Scott is okay. And that is John Clealand, and that's a good sight. Good to see him out.
He's a great character, a grand performer.
And he's not happy about all that. Absolutely unhappy about it. And but I tell you, I'm very pleased to see that he's on both feet and up and away from that thing. And that was amazing. It's always worried me, Greg, you know, when you see cars off to the side of this racetrack and they're limping along. We saw some people earlier in the weekend. Here's the replay.
He's well offline.
He's come out behind
another car.
Yeah.
Jason was, he was well offline. He was right around the outside. And then John was actually, he wasn't actually that far away. That is amazing.
You know, he's just dived out from behind him, Greg. He hasn't sighted. And he hasn't obviously noticed the flags cautioning, because they'll always give you an indication that there's a car slowing on the side of the road with the white flag.
Yeah.
These are the incidents that we fear. Here's the replay again, slow-mo. The number 7 Castrol car was the car that was preceding John Clealand, and that is a huge, huge accident. And she's turned turtle, skates down the road, and the integrity of the roll cage protects the driver. The multi-point harness does its job, and the wee Scott wanders off. Former British touring car champion. He just came back from the Race of Champions at Donington several weeks ago. He was really looking forward to this race.
He's been in very good form. He was quick at Sandown and quick again here at Scaife.
This gives our key runners that have been at the front of the field a little let out of jail card here, because they take an opportunity now to pit under the safety car.
They will be. There's Jason Bryan. Obviously, those guys have got a bit of work to do. Not sure what's wrong with that car, though.
Well, Greg's on the spot. Meanwhile, Mark and Todd swap over. And Greg, what can you add?
Well, I'm just down here with Jason Bright. You've put Paul Wheel in. Did the car have some sort of drama, Jason, before the incident at the top?
Yeah, no, we lost the brakes over the top. It came up with a vibration about half a lap earlier, and then over the top, the pedal just went dead hard straight over the crest. So the pedal was just hard the rest of the way around. So I don't know, we've either cracked a disc or something on it. Tough blow, Jason, for the championship as well. Yeah,
this car's stopped.
Yeah, it hurts.
Thanks, Jason.
There's problems with the Scaife Kelly car.
It's not the first time they've had some brake problems with the PWR car this year, and there's a problem here with the HRT car that's going nowhere. The engine has been switched off, so we need to get to the bottom of that.
I just watched them come in. Scaife has got out of the car and Todd in, and they got the belt. There it is on the ground there. They put 25.6 seconds worth of fuel in, and this is hurting these guys big time.
I think it's throwing either a power steer belt or a water pump belt or something. That's a belt lying on the ground that they're going to have to put on. So that's happened straight away.
You know, one thing that is always the same in this motor race, year in and year out, is the unpredictability of it. You know, none of this is deformed. None of this is what we thought would happen. It's extraordinary.
I think it's an alternator belt there.
It's alternator, yeah.
Alternator.
Yeah, confirm.
That sort of thing never used to happen to that team, but it goes in cycles.
That was Owen Kelly,
sport.
I think, walking away from that car.
That means David Brabham will be getting behind the wheel. They've had a pretty quiet run at the moment. They're positioning themselves reasonably well, providing they have the car speed, of course, but there's a lot of vaunted performers dropping out around them.
It's all action here. There's bonnets going up everywhere. There's a few people with a few problems. That they had to get the gearbox off that HRT car too to get that belt changed.
It's really slowed them down.
Yeah, it's a time-costing one, that one.
Dale Breed and Will Davison in the second of the Team Dynamic Dodo entries there, and they're pushing the PWR car back out. A very hot Mark Scaife. It's interesting your remarks there before, Greg, about just how hot it is out there, and obviously we come into this little bunker and we lose a sense of the temperature, but I saw a caption earlier that said 25 degrees air. That's a little above the prediction, so it will be getting hot in those cockpits.
Yeah, it is really, it's warming up. I mean, I think not a lot of airflow coming through the cars, even though the high speed you might think they are.
Well, that's what's the deceptive thing for us, Murph, because anyone around the circuit here would know the breeze is very cool, and that has been keeping the temperature down, but the direct sunlight is pretty warm.
And in the cars, obviously, they just radiate heat big time. But this is the one thing about that safety car. There's the cars on the circuit that have stopped probably were still reasonably grouped up. So Lounsey came in, obviously, but it wasn't like the spread out field that there was in the first.
No, he probably didn't get the full effect. No. Let's get down and have a listen to what Mark's got to say.
Mark, I don't know what to say, but that pace car then was working into your strategy pretty good.
Oh, look, it was perfect, but it's chucked an alternator belt off by the look of it, and that was going to be the perfect scenario. I mean, it was going to basically make a stop at the right time, and the car was very good. I got, obviously caught in the traffic early, and that's as good as I could do without torturing it, with looking after the fuel economy and making sure that we were going to be on a 4-stop strategy. Everyone else had already come in, so, and the car was very good. I thought Lowndes probably, as a car, as the fuel load come down, his car was pretty good also.
There's only a few guys. Marcus and some of the other guys have gone for that 5-stop and opened themselves up earlier. Morris and some of the others are 4. What do you think on those two strategies?
Safety cars will play the part there, Darryl. I thought that for us there now, with the safety car at the right time, that was going to be perfect. And through the day, we were then on a strategy that we could make it. But if you can't make it, and you've got to be able to do 32 laps on a stint, then you're in plenty of trouble.
This is a tough race, sorry, mate.
Yeah, it is a tough race, mate, but it's a bloody good race too.
Kim Jones is definitely looking like a tough race for you guys today.
Yeah, well, not so much for the 21 car. I think Andrew and John had a really good shot at it this year. The car was quick. Looking at the TV, he's just jumped out to pass somebody, and unfortunately there was a very, very slow car there. He's hit it very hard and had a really big lick. But the Aussie Male Falcon and the team, we'll keep going. We'll go home and rebuild that for Bradley to run at Queensland at the Indy race. The 12 car's still rocking on, and hopefully at the end of the day we'll be up the front.
Did you hear anything from John after the crash?
No, but I saw he broke the window, so he must have been in a hurry to get out. He seems fine. He just gave the button a push, which tells us that he's still in control and doing things. Obviously, he wanted to get out of the car as quick as he could. The safety people were there, and we'll get over this and move on and concentrate on the 12 car and get another Ford to the front.
Okay, and you've called his wife in England already to let her know what happened?
Yeah, all that's under control. We have a bit of a contingency plan with all that, because obviously the show goes live into England, and once they go off the accident, she'll be worrying about what's going on. So we've got all that covered. But the Aussie Male Fords, we're going quick with both cars. Now we're going quick with one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the other aspect is that Jason Plato's car is stuck in the sand as well. Now, whether they'll be able to get that car back and give Peter Brock some laps in his very last race, I severely doubt. So there are going to be a few disappointed Brock fans on the mountain. And that's another smaller aspect when you think about the safety involved with John Cleland's car. But it is yet another of the stories unfolding here this afternoon. Adam Macro, yet to make a pit stop, is effectively the race leader, but Rick Kelly is well positioned. We spoke to his teammate just a moment ago at the front of those cars that have made a stop, but we're under yellow still.